Hello, everyone, and welcome to GuildGab episode 31. We have 5 people today, so an all-new layout, no more mini inks in the corner. Today, we have some awesome stuff to talk about, such as specializations. We had a giant blog post and a 4-hour Ready Up live stream talking about specializations, so we're going to talk about our opinions on that, as well as the great Maguuma Wastes Massacre, as I am choosing to call it, the search for the Heart of Thorns closed beta portal in-game. So, I am AuroraPeachy, and these are my wonderful co-hosts, Akasaurus Rex, Corvus, Alex, and Inks. How's it going, guys?
Yeah!
Good, yeah.
Yeah, good.
Tons of news this week.
Lots and lots of stuff to talk about.
Lots to talk about.
Just a little wee bit of news.
Yeah.
I almost don't really know where to begin, though I think we're going to kind of go in slightly reverse order here and start with, has anybody gotten a beta portal drop yet?
Nah.
Not yet.
No.
No. It says it says rare chance to get it. And considering that it's the writing is purple and therefore a legendary stat item, we can if we roughly kind of tie that up with what we know about RNG in this game. Yeah.
Yeah,
I know there were, I think there were 4 people so far in ATT who got drops yesterday, so there's at least 4 of them in the guild so far that have drops from one day.
So we know it exists.
That's 4 people confirmed in the beta so far.
Someone, I was, when the patch went live, I was streaming yesterday on my Peachy party, and someone in chat said that they got it within like the first 5 minutes. I was like, you son of a...
Son of a gun.
Really?
I think it's it's a much better idea than the random kind of email sign up for a list kind of thing. Cause
yeah, what do you guys think about that?
At least this way, the way to get it is you actually have to get involved with the game, and you have to at least be familiar with some of what is now, I guess, end game content. So you've been playing season 2 and you know what's going on. So in that respect, I think it's a really good idea. I think people would just appreciate it if it dropped a little bit more often. But that's the nature of RNG, isn't it? And obviously not everybody can get into the beta because otherwise the servers will just crash. And
yeah.
You know,
it's a good way of ensuring that like the people that get are going to be level 80 and kind of are at least actively playing the game. Because like you said, like just a random email thing. There could have been loads of people that got that email and didn't have any level 80 characters yet or something if it was just purely RNG. And while, okay, it's a small chance and there's going to be people that, play every single day for 8 hours or something and don't get one, at least everyone who is in the beta is going to be, at level cap and kind of have a good idea of how to play the game and stuff.
Right.
I think it's a really cool idea, and it just draws people into the game anyway. It's something for us to do. Like we've said, there's not been that many content updates recently, and so they've given us something to do, even if it is just kind of
it is
that
something
content.
to do. It's a goal. You're always talking about wanting a goal in game. Well, for the next week, this is your goal until you get it.
And nobody in my guild's got one yet, and I've only seen one person in map chat as well since the patch went live get one, but it's there, and it was cool. Like I've been trying with a bunch of my guildies to get one, and it's cool going there with a different goal. Like people go there to get obsidian shards or to chest farm or to get XP or gold or whatever.
It's a good farm anyway. So people say, "Oh, I farmed for 80 hours this week and I got nothing." Well, it's still a good farm. You are getting tons and tons of loot, tons and tons of gold and champ bags.
You'll have hundreds of bandit crests as well. Especially if you stay in the same map, you get the extra chance to get the the hero's bandit bag or whatever. Yeah. And it's weird that I have heard a lot of people saying that the dry top map is more profitable, but I don't really understand the thinking behind that, because there's more events in Silver Wastes, there's more champions, there's kind of more everything in Silver Wastes. So I'd be interested to hear what the reasoning is behind people suggesting dry top.
It's because the mobs that spawn in Silver Wastes are tied to the event chain, right? And so those mobs just kind of by default tend to not drop loot.
That's
because
true.
Because it's just like event spawns. And so people thought dry top would be better because pretty much everything there does drop something, like even if it is just random mats or something. So Yeah, so I guess that's what people think. But you get enough. They did say that the portal can drop from like event chests and stuff as well. So
Yeah.
you know, even if you just escort a Dolyak or something, it's still a chance in Silver Waste.
So dry top's interesting, and the reason I think some people say it's more profitable is if you have a proper group running all of the events, which there are many. There's usually several groups that run simultaneously in order to get that map to hit its maximum cap. And when you do that, there's lots of creatures to kill, there's lots of events that happen on a cycle, and certainly even during the sandstorm, it's not so much about opening the chest, but about doing even more events that can, you know, give you that opportunity and give you that chance. And then, of course, you have things like clay pots that you could buy with geodes that still sell for a decent amount of money, different things like that. The problem with dry top is if you don't have a coordinated group, then the map is not quite as nice, profitable, or event farming wise nearly as good.
That's been my issue with dry top so far. It's kind of like I go in and you know, we kind of end up with like a tier 3 or a tier 4, which, you know, it's not bad, but when, like you say, if you get coordinated groups and you're hitting that tier 6 all the time, you kind of get a little bit annoyed with it and just go, you know what, screw it, I'm just going to jump to Silver Waste. Because even if you do like a solo farm on that, you can, and you base yourself around Indigo, you're constantly getting, you know, you're hitting your events, even if you're just destroying one set of mobs that's attacking a Dolyak or something, and then back in and out the other side, or hitting the veterans and things like that. And I found that way you get a lot more event chests and
Silver Waste is a lot. Silver Waste is a lot more solo friendly, or maybe small group friendly, where the coordination isn't needed quite as much in order to hit that, you know, perfect kind of synergy to complete those events anyway.
Yeah, and you with Silver Waste you get your Vine Wrath killed pretty much every time now, which is pretty cool. Yeah. So
I think I've killed Vine Wrath more in the last day than ever before.
It's an interesting. I still think it's an interesting fight. I think it's a nice, not casual boss encounter exactly, but it provides a little bit of a challenge, and I think we've said it before, it's kind of like a mini marionette, isn't it? And
yeah. It is no replacement for the marionette.
No.
But a mini marionette, okay, yeah, I'll give you that. Especially now that people kind of know what they're doing, and like you said, it's very of much higher chance now that you're going to defeat it now. But that kind of goes for anything. I mean, you know, you have a decent chance of beating Tequatl, you know, every time you go in there, even just with any random map you go in. You know, as long as it's semi-coordinated, people kind of know what they're doing.
Yeah. And it is just Silver Wastes and Dry Top that these portals drop from, isn't it?
Correct.
It's none of the other Maguuma maps. It's
Maguuma Wastes.
Maguuma Wastes. Yeah. But yeah, so if you get it, you're going to be in with the beta, but nothing's been announced yet in terms of when the next one's going to be. But seeing as like this week, everything's kind of ramped up a couple of gears, with like just the amount of information that we've had and the amount of kind of communication in game, just going, hey guys, you're going to be able to play soon again. It seems like they're going to start teasing us with more and more.
Well, hopefully this points of interest is going to be the first specialization reveal, and then well, actually, we did get Tempest on the ready up. I don't know if we were supposed to, but they showed it and they confirmed it.
I think John Peters still has a job, so I don't think he gave too much away that he wasn't supposed to.
So, what do you guys? We got the Mesmer specialization artwork with the shield. I think most people are assuming it's Chronomancer, but nothing's been confirmed.
So, yeah.
So, what do you guys think about that?
I mean, I think it's almost definitely going to be this Chronomancer or the Mesmer specialization, whatever it's going to be called. We see like the image that we have here on our nice UI layout. We have the special shoulders and a shield, probably both from that reward track, which look very nice and interesting. So I think the order of the reveal is kind of interesting as well.
Yeah, because Mesmer was the last class they revealed for Guild Wars 2, wasn't it, before launch?
And we already
Yeah.
know a lot of stuff about, like, we know Druid, so a lot of people assume that Druid was going to be first. And then when
Yep.
they revealed Tempest, then people say, oh, well, maybe they're going to show Elementalist first.
Yeah.
But
what I thought.
now it looks like maybe they're going to do Mesmer first. So, and then I heard, like you were going to say, Corvus, Mesmer, when they initially released the names of all the classes before Guild Wars 2 launched, Mesmer was the last one that they revealed.
Yeah.
So if they do Mesmer first, maybe they're going to go in reverse order, which means we get, what,
backwards.
Warrior and Engineer last? Well, Revenant is probably going to be last.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're going to be getting a massive information dump relatively soon about the Revenant anyway. Even just in terms of the base class, and then just and also there's the specialization as well. But,
Yeah.
I think originally Chronomancer was one of the rejected classes from Guild Wars 2. It was originally
That's
going to
what
be
I love about it the
it was
most.
originally going to be a class in its own right, and when it came time to start streamlining and boiling it down into the classes that were going to be in the game, a lot of the Chronomancer skills kind of made the transition into what is now the Mesmer class. So I assume stuff like Time Warp was originally like a Chronomancer skill.
Yeah.
And it's just really great to see that they've not, they've kind of like archived a lot of the great ideas that they had back at the time when they were still developing the game, and just gone, hey, well, instead of just bringing up new ideas for the sake of it, just look, well, we had these cool ideas that we didn't really get to implement at the time, and now with the whole the new way the specialization works, that's going to be really interesting. Getting Time Warp as a cantrip or whatever it's called, or a channeling skill or an illusion or whatever it is, and then kind of combining those traits in with whatever the Chronomancer specialization is going to be.
So my question would be, if it does become this Chronomancer, what do you guys think the actual shield abilities, spells would be for that kind of class? That's something I'm curious about.
Yeah,
Do you think it's going to be
right?
like similar to like the shield will be maybe like a guardian shield, and that it can blast things, or do you think it will physically block things in some way? Or how do you guys think?
I'd assume it'd be something. I'd be surprised if we didn't see it have the slow condition on it, considering it's a new skill that's coming in. Again, you absolutely might be right. Maybe some kind of confusion blast finisher on it as well.
I mean,
Yeah.
we
Well,
saw
we've
in the
seen-
trailer. In the trailer, you
Right.
saw, a character use that skill, and it was like a clock on the ground, kind of AOE thing. And I reckon that'll be AOE slow or something like that. Those kind of things. It's interesting. I mean, obviously, there's going to be a whole set of new skills and stuff, but it is just going to be 2 weapon skills that we get with the shield, and I'm guessing they're going to have to. They're going to be kind of big skills, I guess, just to make up for the fact that they're not getting 5 new skills like some other classes are going to be.
They should have like a Captain America shield throw.
Well, the same way as the
I don't know how that
Mesmer,
would work, but cool.
same way as the Mesmer can use the Great Sword, but they don't physically attack. They don't run up and
it's like
hack and
ranged.
slash
Yeah.
with it. It's a ranged. They use magic
Spellcasting.
from it, and so
Yeah.
I kind of imagine
Yeah,
Shield being the
that's-
same thing. So they're probably not going to be expected to actually like physically block attacks. They're probably not They're not going to be expected to suddenly be a close range class. Kind of like what we're kind of speculating that Necromancer with Great Sword
Necromancer,
might give Necromancer more of a melee role. I don't think that this is going to give the Mesmer a melee role. I think they're still going to be ranged. It's just, or unless they use it with the sword. You could have sword shield Mesmer now, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. You've got that. You've got that swap skill on Sword 3, I think it is, where you swap place with your illusion,
right.
and then you use skill 2 to stun, and then. Yeah, if you can... Yeah, that'd be interesting. You swap, then you produce the slow effect, and then you use your kind of rapid swish, rapid kind of strikes or whatever it is, which also gives you, like 3/4 of a second of complete evade, I think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Or something like that. So I think almost like a spike DPS ability. if you go in and if you completely shut down the bad guys by using the slow effects, and you can dive in and you can dive out in time to do a whole ton of damage, put a ton of confusion on so that they can't really attack you back, and then jump out again. I think maybe not a whole ton of melee capability, but in and out kind of
something. Yeah.
So we've seen a lot of the changes that are going into Mesmer, and so interrupting is going to become a lot more important, I think, for that class, or at least there's an emphasis on interrupts. So my idea for the shield would be, of course, we have what appears to be an AoE slow that apparently does at least some amount of damage on its initial hit. And then the other shield skill, I would imagine to be some sort of interrupt. And the reason that I pair these two things together is, number one, you have Time Warp, which is already a haste. This slow is the opposite of that, and of course a new mechanic. And because interrupting is already so important to the class, or at least very prevalent in the new trait system, I think that it'll synergize well with some of the core specializations by having another interrupt of some sort on the second shield skill.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. For sure. I mean, there's also, quickness is a boon now as well, so I can imagine a lot of the new skills are going to play off that. It'd be cool to, say in PvP or something, inflict slow on everyone and then give yourself quickness, and you've got this kind of, you're working like, 4 times the speed that everyone else is around you. It'd be pretty awesome to see.
The other thing too, just like quickly, is that with like the inclusion of the shield, even though there's only two main abilities, is that you're also getting a ton of new extra skills as well as a new elite skill. So all of those, or any of those, could also incorporate the shield somehow, especially like the new elite skill, which would be pretty kind of cool if they actually did that. I'm
really interested actually in what the elite skill could be. That's all it's
Captain America shield throw.
Yeah.
I want that.
That's tough because it's so difficult to think about, what those utilities, heals, and stuff could be with the shield. Hopefully we'll find out tomorrow. But
that would be perfect. Have a blog post tomorrow, and then they kind of elaborate on it on points of interest. That would be awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm
kind of hoping that as the betas progress, we'll be able to start using some of these specializations, which I assume they're going to do anyway. But they can't reveal something and just go, but you'll have to wait.
Right.
See, I've been really curious about when the betas are going to be, right? Because I mean, I doubt that we're going to be able to play any of the elite specializations anytime soon. But they showed off, there's obviously that 4-hour stream where they showed off all of the core specialization changes and stuff. But so much of that was unfinished. Like Engineer especially, there were so many traits and stuff that were just, nothing there yet. And it made me wonder, maybe, okay, it kind of, at first I was like, okay, we're going to play the betas and, we might be able to play with these new traits and stuff like that. But I think they're just going to limit it to everything that's in game now because, everyone's got a chance of getting in the beta now for the next week. I can imagine it's going to be fairly soon that we actually get to play, and I doubt all of those things that aren't finished yet are going to be finished in time for that beta.
Well, let's throw this out there then. I'm going to guess 3 weeks into May will be the beta. They'll give us a whole weekend, or at the very least, I think 24 hours. And that also gives us 3 weeks of specializations to reveal several classes, as well as give them time to finish up Engineer. So it's very possible that people have been asking this question a lot on the forums, on Twitter, wherever. Is this going to be just like the demo? I think it would be absolutely ridiculous to consider even that it's going to be the size of the first beta or the first demo that we've seen at PAX and that Aurora got to play at home headquarters there. The area is going to be much larger, without a doubt. I think that specializations, at least a rough idea of specializations, the core specializations that is, will be finished, so that will be playable with, to tinker with, and possibly a couple of these elite specializations might be ready to be played with at that point. You know, I know that 3 weeks into May or 3 weeks from now sounds like a long time, but we have a whole week of trying to get access to beta, and then I can imagine another week or two before we're actually getting a longer beta, and that lines up with like a long weekend in North America anyway. So
I think as well, what's kind of interesting to note is that the trait and specialization rework is going to come before Heart of Thorns as well. So we're hopefully we're going to be looking at that going, live. You know, if we had the opportunity to play with the system when it was like a beta weekend happens or something like that, or even if they just drop it on us suddenly going, yep, it's done, have fun. Here we go. But
I think that's possible if it is like 3 weeks away, because they had a lot of ideas for the trait changes, because there's a lot of traits that are completely gone, there's traits that are combined, there's traits that are like they're completely reworking the system as well as the UI, which I think looks amazing.
Oh my god,
Love
it's
the UI.
so good.
cool.
And that
So much better.
that's maybe that's like a month from when they kind of when the ready up was, so maybe that's enough time for them to kind of finalize it, hopefully, because they did confirm that it's coming out before Heart of Thorns, the base trait rework. So rework.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll
I
get
think
there.
it would make a lot of sense for them to kind of trial it in a beta kind of situation before releasing it.
But could they put that on just one character, though? Could they put that on just one character, or would they have? Do you think? Would they have to implement the new trait system throughout the entire game?
Well, this is it. Like, the demo was obviously made quite a while back, and was just like, it was just this closed off like instance area using like the old base game kind of stuff. I think any new beta stuff, is obviously, like you said, Inks, is going to be a lot bigger. We're going to hopefully get a zone to explore properly, that kind of thing. I think that's going to be running off the new stuff, and I think it would make sense for them to implement this new trait stuff, in that in the new beta thing, and it lets them test out and kind of get a good idea of balance, at least in PvE, for the new changes, and lets them get some really like hands-on direct feedback as well. I think it would make sense to run with it. It's just I don't know. I think the beta should be soon, and the fact that they're doing this event means that it's very soon. But it's kind of like juggling that with how unfinished a lot of it is, and all the way through the stream. And I think it's amazing that they did the stream, even though it was unfinished. It was a really cool, like crystal clear bit of insight into what they're doing, and they kept reminding us, and it lets us give feedback along the way and stuff like that. It's awesome. But it did seem unfinished, right? And they were saying all the way through that, like, oh, the numbers are wrong here, and oh, this is probably going to be a bit different.
It alleviates a lot of that complaint that, oh, we have no idea what you're doing. You're not showing us anything until it's ready. Well, here's something that they went 4 hours into something that was completely not ready.
But another part of me is kind of like, they've never done a stream for that long before, right? Like, 4 hours of just them talking to the camera was insane. And so at first I was like, wow, that must mean, that something's going to be happening soon, right? Like, because it almost felt like they wanted to just get this information out there, so we were kind of prepared for it. Because they could have just finalized some of it and then done like, oh, every week here's another class and this is what's changing with each kind of class. They could have easily spread out like that. And so it kind of felt to me that like they were not rushing out the door, but just getting it out there so maybe this beta thing could happen. And get us prepared for the changes that we'll experience in the beta. And I think that's like the main reason I think we're going to see these core changes in this coming beta. I'm unsure how long they'll need to get it in a playable format.
There are quite a few changes that I'm looking forward to in the actual changes, the actual trait changes themselves. Like watching the Twitch chat and tasting the delicious rage as as Icebow 4 is being nerfed into the
No.
ground. It's about time. Like, everyone kind of bangs on about the meta and speed clearing and all that, but all it comes down to is half of it is you rely on this one skill on a weapon that you have to spawn every minute or so. And yeah, it's really great for speed clearing, like doing like the Graveling Burrows in AC. Like, it's super useful for that, and partly because you can't critical hit them and all the rest of it, but having a situation where you don't have to rely on just this one skill.
Yeah.
This
it's
one
not
skill.
fun.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's just kind of like you just end up going through the motions, and a lot of what they were talking about, especially with the Elementalist, was they were really trying to push the idea of an Auramancer in the stream, which sounds like a really cool idea, getting those fire shields and all that kind of thing up, and that'll be really kind of an interesting way to kind of play it or to see how it works. And that was something that I was loving about what they were doing. That people seem to be complaining that they're reducing build diversity, which is true in one sense, but at the same time, for me, they're increasing build viability. There's no point in saying we've got 50 different builds that you can use if people use the two
Only one's going to be viable.
There's absolutely no point in having these having these other kind of builds there if nobody uses them. And yeah, they're absolutely right that some of the traits were kind of complete trash and shouldn't have really been there. Well, not shouldn't have been there, but I think they're doing the right idea, condensing everything into into the 9 traits from 15 or whatever we are now.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, they're cutting out. We're choosing 3 trait lines, but they're 3 full trait lines now. So it's an extra Grandmaster and a Master that we're going to be getting, in terms of like traits you can choose. And yeah, I can understand. They've kind of cut down the possible amount of builds, but they've added so much like synchronization to them that we're going to have way more that are actually going to be viable and useful and possible to pull off. And I think that's, like you said, just so much more important.
And the best thing, one of the best things, because there's just so many things that they were bringing up with that massive, giganormous stream, was that I love the fact that they're taking away the stats from the trees as they are now, which
brilliant idea.
Is
so much.
Because like from like an Ellie perspective, when I've had them, I love the elemental aspect of fire, earth, wind, and water and stuff. But I've always been annoyed when that classic archetype of like, well, water is purely for healing and only for healing. Yeah. But what if you like water? What if you're living in a horribly landlocked, dry hellhole and you like water, water spells, and you want to use water to kill things? And it's like, you can kind of do that now. It's like you don't have to do just fire or any number of the other classes to it. It's like you don't have to take that one tree because it has the power in it. And so now it's
so much.
That's wonderful. That's so wonderful, and it just opens up so many possibilities. So,
I know that Inks, you've discussed this at length with most of the internet in the last couple of days, haven't you?
Discuss again, man.
I like to talk about Guild Wars 2. What can I say? Yeah, so I'm excited for the changes. You cannot have progress without change. And I understand that some people are going to lose their favorite builds, or they're not going to be able to play their favorite builds the same way. But they'll find new builds, and they'll discover a new build. And sometimes that's half of the fun of making a build, is discovering it for yourself.
Exactly.
And I'm not suggesting everybody has to play meta builds. I play meta builds. It doesn't mean that everybody has to do that. For sure, like you guys have already been saying, build diversity takes a hit. There's no doubt about it. Instead of having 10 quadrillion builds, now you're only going to have 3 quadrillion builds or whatever. Reddit has worked the numbers out, whatever they are. But like you said, before there was maybe 20 viable builds or very viable builds, I guess you could say, and that number's probably going to go up to 25 to 30, maybe even more than that. At this point, it's a little hard to speculate on how many more viable builds there's going to be. Some people are a bit unhappy. I see some chat or I see some talk in chat here about, Mesmer's losing a particular build that was a favorite. For some classes, like Mesmer, like Engineer, ArenaNet's really reinventing the class in a way. They're changing the core values of that class. They want it to be played in a different way. Just like Warrior, for example, its healing signet, Warriors never use that healing skill. If you do, you will be ridiculed to death for using it.
Yeah.
You just
And I just think that that's a shame. You should use your skills. You know, there should be an opportune time to use those skills, those utilities for the most part. And there's a lot of builds and there's a lot of classes that they don't shatter. You know, Mesmers don't shatter. Warriors don't use their signets, for example. They don't use their adrenaline, for another example. And I think that's a shame. And I'm glad that they're adding mechanics in there that entice you to do so.
one of the
So
things
that
I'm
has
looking
me rather happy.
Yeah, definitely.
One of the things that I'm looking forward to with Mesmer is probably about 6 months into the game, one particular build took a massive hit. I think it was some kind of like Phantasm build or something. It took a really huge hit, and now that they're rejigging it, and so some of the shatter builds are changing. That I'm kind of happy they're bringing back some of that Phantasm aspect into it, because I really like some of the Phantasm skills are so cool, and having that pistol Phantasm, just awesome, really cool class. But it's kind of weird. This is probably going to affect Peachy a little bit. There's one of the Guardian lines where they split two of the they turn a master trait into a Grandmaster or something, and both of them are viable for the meta or whatever it is at the moment. So you have to choose between the two.
To be honest, I'm nothing but happy, because I fell into the I want to be a tanky guardian. So I just threw 6/6 into into the 2 for toughness and vitality. And I took the traits that were, appropriate for the weapons I was using and what I wanted to accomplish there. But now taking that out, I do have to concentrate more on the stats on my armor, and I don't, and I can actually look at every single trait line and what I want to use, rather than just
Exactly.
I was basically, because that's how I want to play my guardian, I was basically stuck in those 2 trait lines, and those are the only 2 that I ever looked at. I mean, I don't even know what the other traits are, because I rarely use them, because that's not how I wanted to play. So now I can look at every single build and see, I can put myself with vitality and toughness and everything I want in my armor, and then I can really get creative with the traits and how I want to play, and even change my play style down the line. Still be a tanky guardian, but change my play style and my abilities and the way I play that tanky guardian with the new trait system. And so that's what I'm excited for, is like I can still be my tank, but then I can change up my abilities. I love that.
It's super
What-
cool.
I really love the when games like this go away from being a purely numbers game, like how it is now, like Peachy just saying, like putting like 6 here, 2 there, 1 there, and it loses flavor because you're just thinking about the numbers. It's like, oh, well, you got to have the 2 here and the 4 here and the 1 there, and it's so dull. Whereas now, it's becoming more simplified in some ways, but becoming much more impactful, because it's like you're gonna have 3, so choose 3 that mean, essentially flavorish to you, and then you
Again,
choose
it's taking
abilities that you
inspiration
like.
from games like Metroid, Legend of Zelda, where it's not just a number and leveling up. You are learning new abilities. You're gaining its abilities. You're gaining new, as you go through Legend of Zelda game, you don't gain levels. You might gain hearts, or your magic bar might get bigger. But no, you're gaining items. You're gaining abilities as you explore the world. You're learning and you're growing. It's not just simply a number that's going up that makes you stronger.
Exactly.
And that's what all these features that they're implementing in Heart of Thorns, like with the mastery system, with the exploration mastery track, learning how to glide, learning how to use your glider better, learning how to use the jumping mushrooms and the speed mushrooms and the healing mushrooms in the world. The new trait system mimics that now. It mimics that part of how they want to turn the game into ability-based rather than numbers-based.
Exactly.
I'm just
And it
kind
just,
of
I think, sorry.
I'm just kind of thinking if you could get like an altruistic power guardian going, because obviously altruistic healing is still there. And so because if you run like a 5 guardian party, so you all have staff you all have your staff equipped. You boost you all to 25 might, but then all of your stats in your armor are in power. Switch to greatsword, instant win. And then you've got if you run with 5 guardians, you've got perma 25 stacks of might there.
It's pretty cool. It's good. I think it's just going to open up. It just opens up doors, like you were saying. You know, you would look at what line gave you what stats, and then pick traits out of the ones you were limited to before. And now, you know, I could be full Zerker Necro and choose good traits that I might want, like, you know, AoE healing when I leave Death Shroud or something like that. Those kind of defensive stuff, which will help me out. You know, instead of just going for, oh, this one's power and I have to, okay, I'll inflict burning on my life blast, whatever. Like, I don't really care about it, but I just want the numbers out of it. I just think it was just such a good idea. Like, just such a cool idea, and I don't think it was one many of us were expecting, really, you know, to completely split that. I guess a lot of people thought, you know, because it puts a lot of emphasis on gear and armor and stuff, and that's kind of not ArenaNet style, but I think this is going to make a huge difference, and it's a really, really good difference. I'm super looking forward to playing around.
I don't think it's necessarily going to make a change to the armor that people run. I think that we're going to have to look. We are having to look at the traits and the mastery system and all that when we talk about breaking the Zerker meta. Because all that's going to happen is now we've got the increased stats on the armor. People are just going to go, well, we still might as well use our Zerker armor because we're going to get that bonus there. But one thing that one thing that I did start thinking was, now that we've, like we said, you've got the 3 full trait lines, there is a bit of potential for power creep to make its way into the game, because when we've now got 3 Grandmaster traits in there. It's, you know, you trait right. So say for the Elementalist, if you trait right on the Earth line, you trait right on the Fire line, and you trait in the Arcane line, which I think there's like the Arcane build at the moment kind of relies on kind of high crit chance.
Yeah.
It's like you're looking at a very, very high damage output, but a ton of survivability as well, which might create a little bit of an imbalance when it comes, or at the very least, it will create perhaps more powerful builds than is absolutely necessary. So I think there will, but you know, like we've said here, and like they were saying in the stream, everything is still, you know, very much work in progress. So hopefully the numbers will be rejigged, and we'll end up with something that's pretty darn balanced.
Yeah, I think like the main key thing they're going to want to do is make sure that the traits are a big enough deal, because it would make sense, right? Oh, I'll just go all like full Zerker, and then, you know, trait really defensively, so I'm like really hard hitting with loads of survivability. But if they make it so that like the traits are so good that you can do that, but you will have like way more damage if you traded offensively or something, you know, it will make people less likely to do it. And because it's happening across the board to everyone, you know, okay, fine, you might have like a good amount of power compared to now and with defensive traits, but you know, if you trade offensively, then you're going to have way more, and the numbers are changing so much that they could really go anywhere with that stuff. You know, maybe everyone's numbers will like double or something, and that'll just become the new norm or something. I don't know. I think it's super exciting because we're going to be in like a playground basically once this lands. Like, we're going to have so much to test and to play around with, and new builds are going to be popping up everywhere, and it's just, I don't know, it's going to be super exciting.
I'm really excited to go on every single one of my alts and like all over again. Just look at all the traits, and it's going to take a while, but it's going to be fun.
I also love the change to like the skill points and like how we actually get the trait abilities. I guess it is.
It's
such a you know, it's a whole KISS. The whole KISS strategy of like keep it simple, stupid, you know, just, you know, like streamlining things and making it easier, and it feels like it's going to be easier and less of a headache, because if you want to go out and explore the world, there's plenty of incentives to do that, but to get the abilities. Not everybody wants to, go to these little nooks and corners and do whatever ability to get that ability. And it's like, so it's really cool that they're just like, okay, screw it. You guys are just going to get them by playing the game.
Yeah, I
Period.
love
You're just gonna
love
get them.
that they were not afraid to say we were wrong. The last system, the last update that we did the trades, it sucked. They flat out said it was terrible. And we're completely getting rid of that and we're redoing it. I love that they just admitted they were wrong and they're redoing it. It's great. I love it.
100%.
I think what one of the things that I really like what they're bringing back into it is that you have to play your character to kind of progress and get these hero points and that. So the whole idea is that you can, like Aqua said, you get the majority of your hero points when you just by doing your personal story and leveling up. So by the time you hit 1 to 80, you've got most of your hero points.
Yeah.
And that's when they did the new player experience, I very much thought that they took away a lot of learning to play your class through playing the game, because all that you end up really doing is you end up just farming the gold to buy the traits. Because if you're not big on world completion, or if you're still learning how to play your class, you don't want to mess around with trying to complete Lister or Grenth or whatever to get the last Grandmaster trait you need to do to get your build sorted. And that's something that I really thought they missed a trick with on the current system that's in. But if they bring back the way that you used to learn your weapon skills, you've got the traits that you can just kind of. How do you earn trait points now? I've completely forgotten.
What do you mean?
I think just by leveling up.
Just through leveling.
With even in the new system as well, that makes sense, doesn't it? You've got to. My mind's just completely gone blank.
Hero points are for unlocking your skills. It's that circle UI where you put the points in, and I don't quite understand why it was in increments of 5. It just seems like it would be simplified if it was just in increments of 1, or if it went up or changed as you went around the circle more, to get your final elite cantrip, it cost 5 or it cost 10 or something.
Yeah.
But I don't know, that was a little confusing. I think that's why they had a 4-hour live stream, because the blog post was just so just info dump, and it was so complicated that it confused a lot of people, and we obviously we still have a lot of questions. So I think we just need to get in and play it and experience it for ourselves.
I can't really comment too much on why it's the number 5, for example, but the reason it's not number 1 is because you get hero points from leveling, and you also get hero points from doing skill challenges. So if everything just costs 1 until the end, let's say, then you could do, let's just take Metrica Province, for example. That has 8 skill points. You could unlock 8 traits and/or skills if everything just cost 1.
Yeah.
It's too much. It's too easy to, without even leveling up necessarily, to unlock everything if you keep the cost at a 1-to-1 ratio. So there needs to be some kind of buffer there, 5, 3, 4, whatever,
Yeah. And they need to keep giving you stuff for the skill challenges and stuff as well. So they'd basically have to reward you at least 1 for doing those. So yeah, I think it's just a way to make it still feel like you're progressing somehow, slowly, and add, like you said, add that buffer there, which I think it's gonna do amazingly. In terms of that, I think it's really seeing it light up, the UI and stuff like that. It is going to feel like you're getting stronger and stronger, and you complete the circle, and it's going to be good. And the fact that
a little picture of the lightning, and you're just
it gets more colorful as you go around.
And it's awesome now that traits are going to have their own icons, like skills do. And I think that's another
cool.
way that it's going to feel like you've got these abilities instead of just numbered passive whatevers that you kind of forget about. Yeah, it's good. It's good. I think it's definitely going to nail that sense of progression. And yeah, like we were saying before, that kind of Metroidvania, Zelda style, I'm learning all this stuff and my character's progressing, but it's not just I grew a level or, that kind of thing. It's good.
It's no longer an arbitrary set of numbers that get added to your stats and that kind of thing. It's actually starting to mean something again.
Mm-hmm.
I was really the thing that has impressed me with this big info dump was that before when they first announced specializations at the expansion announcement, like a lot of people were wondering and asking, what about the old classes? Like, are they getting any touch-ups or things? And like Arena was kind of saying, they'll give like a little bit, and instead they've shown us in this massive dump saying we're going to completely rework the whole damn thing. It's like, okay, cool. And the great thing is that these elite specializations now you can clearly visibly see how they're going to fit into the experience, and you can also see how the future elite specializations will fit in there, and it really is a much more it's a very elegant system, I guess, that definitely is preparing itself for many years to come, which is very cool to see.
100%.
See them take that attention.
I must say, I don't think enough changed with the Necromancer. I was kind of disappointed. Especially, I know Brazil said that in the video you were in. But really, like, there just wasn't enough done to it. Like, Mesmer got like a lot of stuff overhauled and felt like good changes. Rangers just seem to get buffed loads. I'm not going to be one of those guys, but yeah.
Ranger life, brother.
I just think like it was a perfect opportunity for them to look at what was kind of bad with Necromancer. Not that there's much, of course, and just kind of give it some life, breathe some life back into it. And everyone knows that the biggest problem with Necro is just that there's no real group viability there. Like, it just does not do much for other players, and I think like they could have easily done more kind of, just added like, lifesteal, maybe you lifesteal and it heals people around you or something like that. Like, just anything they could have thrown in there to really make it just a bit more viable in dungeons and stuff like that. And maybe that's what the specialization is going to do, I don't know, but I think out of every class that they spoke about, and I'm not just saying this because it's my main, I do think Necro kind of got the short straw, really. There were so many changes to a lot of the other ones, and some of them were just insane. I mean, Engineer, for example, just so many changes there, and all we really got was like, oh, your life blast looks different when you use Doomfire. Cool. And a couple of the inflict this when you do this have now been swapped out, so it's just the same as you using those skills that they were kind of based on, which is good, but it just wasn't enough for me. And they kind of helped Minion Masters out, but Minion Masters are like worse than Rangers, so...
Whoa!
So, Necromancers... Necromancers have been in a frustrating place for more than a year, probably almost since launch, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So in World vs. World, they have several builds, especially if you play within the Zerg. They function very well. Wells build, for example, in the Zerg is... I used to play on my Necro. Fun, fantastic, positioning is important, etc.
Yeah.
In structured PvP, Power Necro is viable. It's decent. Minion Mancer, of course, works on some levels, not the higher levels, but on the lower level brackets, it certainly works. So it has a couple of viable builds in structured PvP, although it's not necessarily part of the meta and as strong as it could or should be. And PvE, unfortunately, it extremely suffers for the reasons Corvus had already said, is that it doesn't provide... It provides a little bit of utility, but every other class that also provides that utility does so better. It shadows, it outshines the Necromancer. The specialization for Necromancer is going to be extremely important to the class, and it really has to bring some group utility so that it can become viable in the dungeon or just in the general PvE meta.
Needs it so much, yeah.
Yeah, it's a shame, but Necros didn't get quite as much love as the other classes.
No. And I don't know, it was one of the last ones they spoke about as well, so I stayed up through the whole stream trying to hear the good news.
I passed out around Engineer. I was like, no. But no, I think you're absolutely right, Inks, that the specialization is going to be very important to the Necromancer. I just hope that they can do the core class justice as well with it, instead of all necromancers are having to rely on the elite specialization to be viable as part of.
it's.
But
Yeah.
I don't know whether or not we're a little bit late in the day for that. We'll have to see. We'll have to see
Maybe.
what other changes come along.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mind too much, to be honest. I mean, it's not like it's impossible, right? Like, I can still group up with people and do a dungeon as a necro. It's not. It's kind of seen as a selfish class, and that isn't always a bad thing. Like, I don't mind it. It's just, it would have been nice for them to kind of at least throw in some changes in 1 or 2 trait lines that would have really helped out in that regard. But hey, it's alright. I'm not that upset, ArenaNet.
However, Rangers, the best class in the game, continue to be extremely strong.
Yeah.
And
And,
dude, we are like. Did you see the Frost Spirit? Like 75% chance to ping.
Oh boy!
That's gotta change.
I mean, our pets are getting taunt, and as sad as the rise of Barabo makes me, the value, how valuable that taunt on your pet could be, is really interesting. I don't know that I love the trap changes, the delayed arming. I mean, it makes sense, but Matt's just been playing like a trap ranger for a while.
Yeah.
And I can't just I just can't bring myself to do it because traps are they're just not very good, unfortunately.
It's
in my
fun,
opinion,
but
anyway.
they're not very effective. It's
Yeah.
very, very fun to run around and grab. I think the reason they've put in the arming time is because if you don't have the arming time, you tend to use them a little bit like bombs or grenades on the NG. That you just like run around and just start chucking them everywhere you can, and it kind of defeats the point of it actually being a trap. But then I run around and just stomp entangle, and it annoys everybody. So I don't really know where that leaves us.
Yeah, Rangers have a lot of interesting changes coming. There are implications for SPVP of them becoming a defensive, turrety spirit build, which is interesting. Yeah. There's implications in World vs. World. There's huge implications in PvE and dungeons. Rangers are in a very strong, interesting place right now. So, because I play one, I couldn't be happier. So,
yeah, the petting zoo build is pretty much done for, though, isn't it? Unless you're unless you're kind of a point holder, because they're taking away that the movement trait, aren't they? But the thing is,
they're caging them, so
yeah.
We can continue talking about these on the post show, but the last thing I want to talk about in these last 5 minutes for the actual show is: do you guys think that racial skills are getting removed?
Oh,
Do you think those are safe?
Yeah.
Well,
I really hope they don't remove them. Just because
I don't
I
want
like
them to
them, they're
remove them.
fun.
Charzuka!
Yeah.
Charzuka!
It's
I
like
know
flavor,
that-
right? Like it's they're not viable skills for anything, but it's flavor for them. There's a lot of role players that will be very annoyed if that happens. Norn's being able to go into bear form, that kind of thing. Like, it's important to the
take that
race. It's
away?
important.
Yeah.
It's important in terms of the lore. Like, it really is, and I think it would be. Because they're already in game, why the hell would they remove them, right? Like, it's like they would have to go actively out of their way to
Even if they
do
don't
that.
make them stronger, if they're still weaker than everything else, keep them in just for that flavor. I love my Hounds of Balthazar. Shut up.
Actually, I think that those racial skills, I know the logic behind making them not as powerful because people are worried about, they don't have to bring that race. I don't care. It's make those racial skills A, last longer, and B, be at least equal power, if not more powerful. Because make the races more distinct. Because if you're gonna have all races play all classes, then make the bloody racial skills more. I mean,
You can't make them more
bring it in
powerful
there.
because you can't have the only way anybody's going to want you as a guardian is if you're a Nasura or whatever, whatever synergies that there could be. So that I understand. I completely.
Equal.
Yeah, I mean, I understand
it's-
why they need to be less powerful though, because of that you can't have that synergy. But
I mean, I think there was that bug that a few months ago, I think, where the Azuran Elite or something like that was the golem was dishing out insane damage for a little while.
Yeah.
and so everyone was like, and I think that was just like a glimpse of like why we shouldn't have them be decent skills, really, because you really will just get people finding out like, oh, in this dungeon, if we all come on Azura, we can do this and just like destroy the boss in like 2 seconds somehow or something. Like, it's just, I think having them there for like the flavor kind of lore reason is, or like backstory stuff is good, and I don't think they should remove them. But I mean, they could forget about them from now on. That's fine as long as they don't remove them. I'm happy with that.
Yeah, you know, I fall into.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Hawk. Go ahead.
Okay, this is just like really quick. I was just going to say, just for the racial skills, something I would love to see is, if not more racial spells and abilities, if they could kind of like bake into each race like racial, not like, you know, offensive power abilities, but just abilities that are unique to that race, that don't like give you more power. They just give you more flavorful things to do in it that can help with
like
utility.
for the gliders, and Asura gets like this mechanical thing with like glowing magic,
cool.
and the Norn would like turn into a raven in order to glide.
Oh, dude,
that'd be cool.
Yeah, that'd be
really cool.
I think racial
Humans just
gliders
fall.
would be awesome. Yeah, humans just fall.
Humans.
You know, I think I fall in the same category as the rest of you. Is that I don't want to see them removed. The reason that speculation exists in the first place is all of the screenshots and all of the mock-ups, and granted, those are only mock-ups, but there seems to be zero place for a racial skill line. And the other problem is if you take a class like Engineer, which now its elite has an F5 skill, Mortar, for example, has a new skill, Elixir X is getting the MOA thing. Anyway, if you take any of those races and let's say you put on bear form and you're a Norn engineer, are they going to make F5 skills for all of those racial elites? Because that seems rather improbable to me.
Yeah.
So how does that break that new mechanic is a question to ask as well.
Unless like racial skills become just unlockables when you reach a certain level or something, and it's like automatic. There's no, you don't
That's
have
possible.
to earn them, and maybe, you know, you don't have enough hero points to unlock like an elite skill yet, but you get the racial one just to tie you over once you reach like a certain level or something like that.
I just got an idea of about this. Okay, so imagine if they do get rid of all the racial skills, sort of. But if they get rid of all the racial skills, but then with these new specializations, because there's a whole bunch of new utility skills and elite skills, what if they essentially take a lot of those racial skills, like for instance the Druid specialization, which is open to everybody, what if they put an actual transformation skill in there, so any of the races can essentially transform into something, for instance, or for instance like the Charzuka, like maybe that'll be part of like the engineer specialization. So that's just a kind of wonky idea I just had now. If they were to actually delete the actual racial skills, they could then kind of bake them into the other specializations, so that way you can still have them.
I think there'd be a lot of unhappy people as well, because if all they're doing is taking racial abilities from classes and just dumping them into what is supposed to be a brand new elite specialization, it just looks like you're essentially recycling skills that you're kind of going. Yeah. Well, we're actually kind of thinking about getting rid of them anyway. So to me, that wouldn't really make sense. Although, like, kind of like a shape-shifting druid might be cool, but again, I can't see it. So.
Yeah, it's a shame. I feel. I hope there's a way for them to save them in some form, in some way, because, like you were saying, Norn's transforming is a flavor. You know, it's part of who they are. You know, obviously the Char having particular ones as well, and the Azurans. You know, there's been problems in the past with some of these skills. So keeping them underpowered to an extent is important, which makes them less playable or less used for most people. It would be a shame to lose them, but there are a lot of factors with this new system that seem to be arbitrary to, you know, what those skills are about. And, you know, I guess that's one reason why I think that they have a strong possibility of getting the axe.
Yeah, I mean, someone else pointed out in chat, I can't remember, they saying, you know, like, that all skills now are going to be classified somehow, like shouts or traps or whatever, like those kind of things. How would racial skills fit in there? It's a good point, unless there is just a racial skill line, but, you know, I think it's probably more likely for them to be like level up rewards or something just tied to yourself. You know, you get the level up thing, you click it, you see what, you know, kind of crappy loot you get, and oh, you've unlocked this skill, and you can use it for a while. It's a problem, you know, just because, I don't know, like, Norn gets so many transforms, you know, like, it's like 4 transforms they get or something, and like, how would they pace them over the leveling experience, that kind of thing. I don't know. I can't say whether I think they're going to get removed or not, because I think they're super important, and it'd be weird for them to take something that's been there since launch away, you know, if it's not going to be improved in some way differently. But, like, at the same time, I have no idea how they would make them fit. So, we're just going to have to see.
We'll just have to wait and see.
Mystery.
Yeah.
Alright guys, that
When
is
it's
going
ready.
to wrap up, when it's ready, that's going to wrap up the live show. If you're watching here on Twitch, check the chat for links to all of our YouTube channels. Please check everyone out for more Guild Wars 2 content, videos, news, guides, music, everything. If you are watching on YouTube, just click the little annotations, click our names, and that will take you to our YouTube channels. Thank you guys so much for watching. We will see you next week. Bye-bye!
Yay!
See you later. Bye.
Take care, guys. Thanks for watching.